down. I know we're never gonna get enough, and maybe it's better to let it go. We'll never be the same. Tell me what you're going through. Won't you tell me all the things that you do? Tell me, make your wish come true. I know that everyone is sorry next to you, and I am next to you. It's been a long time since we had it all. It's been a while since I was a catcher in the rye, and now it's gone. We don't even seem to care at all, but maybe it's better to move along. We'll always be the same. Tell me what you're going through. Won't you tell me all the things that you do? Tell me, make your wish come true. I know that everyone is sorry next to you, and I am next to you, and I am next to you. All this time I wondered, now I realize. Let me reach out to you.
Good morning and happy Independence Day. At least the legal holidays today. Granted, it was yesterday was the 4th of July, and I hope you had a great time. I gotta be honest. My plans were thwarted over the weekend because we just have so much to do to get ready for my daughter's engagement party, and we started this landscaping project that has taken up pretty much everything. But Lady Boomer and I did get to go into the pool. Well, I got to go into the pool yesterday. If you saw my post on Twitter, I got my pool cleaned and hung out in it for a while. I was checking for, I got a leak somewhere, so I was trying to inspect the liner, and someone made fun of me because I was wearing something that looked like socks in the pool, but those were not socks. Those were swim shoes made for going into lakes. But they give me great traction when you are trying to move around in your pool. You slip less. So I wore them, and someone was making fun of me for that. And I was like, no, they're not socks. Really, they're not. Anyway. So I hope y'all had a nice weekend. Hope you had a great 4th of July if you're an American and you're celebrating and watching all the fireworks and stuff, because I have some residual fireworks right here. And we're going to talk a little bit about whether or not it's okay to celebrate American freedom, or at least on the 4th of July. Apparently there are plenty of people out there who seem to be in mourning over the birth of our nation. I hate to use that phrase because someone will be like, oh, are you just talking about birth of a nation, the stupid movie that what's the name that president showed in the White House. Anyway, I personally believe that everybody who is in the United States of America, whether you are a citizen or a soon-to-be citizen, and even some of those who aren't supposed to be here, should celebrate the damn 4th of July. You should feel lucky to be here. I do. And we'll get into that after the intro. Johnny, play the intro, please. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you live from the Lucky Dog studio in a hidden location somewhere in the upper Midwest of the United States of America, it's a brother making his own way, but with all the wrong opinions. Welcome to the Morning Night Live with your host, yours truly, PDawg Knight. Good damn morning, Americans. Welcome to the Morning Night Live. I'm your host, Marty, also known as PDawg Knight on the internet. Just realized I forgot to tweet this out, but welcome to the PDawgKnight channel. Since you're already here, I am so happy that you are. And while I'm talking to you, I'm gonna tweet out the show because I forgot to. And anyway, it is Monday, the 5th of July, 2021. Y'all realize that in 5 years from now will be the 250th anniversary of the independence, Declaration of Independence of the United States of America. It's weird because I remember celebrating the 200th, the bicentennial. That was such a huge thing. And it was wild. Everyone in the country was, we were celebrating it despite, look, has anyone ever said that this nation is perfect? Has anyone ever said that we don't have things that we should be concerned about in our past, that maybe we should be careful not to repeat? Has anyone ever said that there have been bad things, that there have been no bad things in our past? We've never done anything bad. No, nobody's ever said that. We know that it didn't start out perfect for everybody in this country, and there's still problems in this country. But I guess what I have to think is, was the founding of this nation a good thing? And I only have one answer for that. Yes. Has this nation enabled more people to live good lives? Has this nation allowed people to follow dreams? Has this nation allowed people to fulfill their potential? Why are all these things not logged in? Has this nation given people the opportunity to rise to what their abilities and ambition and desires allow them to become? Now, it doesn't always work. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to be successful. Everyone's going to have the same things, because not everyone have the same level of desire or ambition or just the ethic to do. And yet, does it still allow people to live decent lives without being forced to do things that, well, I shouldn't say that you don't want to, but you know what I mean? I mean, it's just like, I see so many people complaining, so many people bitching, well, this was the Declaration of Independence only for white men. We'll get into that because I'll show you some examples of that. But I, as a black man, can't think of anywhere else that I would be doing better, that I'd be able to live the way I do, at the level I do, where and granted, I live a good life. I'm not rich. Despite the fact that you saw a picture of me in a pool, because again, the pool came with the house. We got this house for dirt cheap because it was a foreclosed house. But with it's not that people can't live the way they want to, but sometimes it depends on the effort you put into it. And some people will put a ton of effort in and never get to where they want to be. But the idea that certain aspects of our population are not free is a little bit, I mean, for me, it's almost ridiculous. As I think of what my parents dealt with, the ones that I grew up with, my adoptive family, I grew up in a black family. And I know what some of the things that my parents got through. And I know some of the things that my grandparents got through. And I know some of the things that my great-grandparents got through. Because I've heard the story. Remember, I have 2 great-grandparents that I know were slaves. I know where they were slaves. And you know, my grandmother's father was a slave. The end of the Civil War was 1865. He was 7 years old. And I know stories of my grandmother telling me stories of her grandmother, who on her mother's side, who was born a slave, but apparently her father was a white man. And so they remember times when that man came around and there was extra food and things like that, because he actually brought things for them but couldn't live with them. And then she remembers that one day they snuck her out of the house and took her off across a river, and she lived with some other relatives in another place. And again, when that man came around, there was food and there was gifts and there were things like that for all the kids, and she had a few extra things, you know, maybe some new shoes or something like that. And then he went away, and then they remembered a time when there was a time of sadness that they didn't know, and that man never came around anymore. And I think the idea that you'd have to sneak her out of a plantation into another state for her to be free, but then she ended up growing up free. And I think, wow, I certainly have no relationship to that other than knowing the story. I have no relationship to my grandfather being a slave, great-grandfather, other than the story. But I haven't lived that life. And people who live that, and one of the reasons I don't live that life is because I live in a country that was founded, not perfectly. Obviously, when the Declaration of Independence was signed, those slaves in the South, it didn't so much apply to them, did it? But did it apply to the black free men in the North? Did it apply to Crispus Attucks, who was the first man killed in the Revolutionary War? Did it apply to the black free men who fought for the Union, in the Civil War? Did it apply? You know, it's funny because there was a big argument over the Star Spangled Banner last week. Someone who I respect greatly, and is doing a lot of things, not just for, just for the cause of what I think is right, who made a post talking about the third verse of the Star Spangled Banner. You know, there's a line in there about hirelings and slaves and how their blood washed the foul footsteps of the British soldiers off the shores when Francis Scott Key was watching this battle of Fort McHenry. And you could not save the hireling and slaves from the grave. Okay, and that word slave in the third verse has some people extremely upset about the Star Spangled Banner. Gwen Berry, the hammer thrower who made her protest when the Star Spangled Banner was played when she was on the podium, that was one of the reasons that she feels like that song disrespects her and her relatives, because she's been told that he was celebrating the death of slaves, the death of, celebrating the death of black people because that line was in the Star Spangled Banner. And, I've been doing a lot of research on that for over a year about Francis Scott Key and that line, because a lot of the people interpret that line based on today's interpretation of what that time was. And yes, he did say that the hirelings and slaves would not be saved from the grave because that Star Spangled Banner shall ever wave. He was kind of a rapper of his time. Actually, it was just a poem, but they put it to music. Problem is, he wasn't celebrating the death of all slaves in the United States. No, he wasn't. Okay? What he was... Look, slave had a multitude of meetings. Not all black people were slaves. There were people at Fort McHenry. One of the heroes of Fort McHenry was a black man. I don't think Francis Scott Key would have celebrated his death because he was an American who was one of the heroes. The point of that line was because a couple things. Part of the reason the War of 1812 happened is because of the British Navy's practice of impressment, which means they would come in and force people to go fight on their ships. Sort of enslave them. And in the language of the time, not only were the slaves on plantations in the South slaves, but so were the impressed soldiers. It was an interchangeable language. But also, the British also would incorporate escaped slaves into their navy. And so there was what's known as the Colonial Marines, a troop of black slaves who had escaped and were fighting for the British. So in fact, during the burning of Washington, many of those escaped slaves were responsible for the burning of the White House. But when he says, when you put it into context, there were also the hirelings. The hirelings, meaning they hired mercenaries, pirates, Spanish mercenaries, to also fight for the British. So when he makes this line about hiring, he's not talking about the slaves in the mainland. He's not talking about the black men in the North who were fighting for the newly formed country. He was not talking about all slaves. He wasn't talking about murdering slaves, because some people say, "Oh, he was celebrating the murder of slaves." No, he wasn't. The point of the line in the third verse of the Star Spangled Banner, he was mocking the British. He was mocking them. Not even your hirelings and slaves would escape the grave. He was talking about people fighting for the British Navy, because this armada that was attacking Fort McHenry. And those hireling and slaves were the mercenaries, the former escaped slaves that fought for him, and the impressed soldiers. The slaves had a double meaning. Slaves did not mean that they were celebrating the death of black people, or Africans, or whatever they called them at the time, or whatever we call us now. So he was celebrating the defeat of those forces that were fighting our newly formed nation. And that's kind of, it's just one of those examples of things where we look at things now based on what we know now, based on what, our today's sensibilities, today's sense of morals. And you know what? I say this all the time. The founding of this nation, as imperfect as it was, when you read the Declaration of Independence And yes, did it apply to all men? No. But did the founding of this nation make it possible for us to end slavery within a generation? And I can't say within a generation. You know, people like talk about how, life expectancy back there was 50. Well, no, that's because we had a lot more diseases where children died back then, and infants died a lot more back then. And so that's what life expectancy is. If you lived past 40 in those days, you were just as likely to live well into your 70s and 80s. Most of the founding fathers, in fact, a vast majority of the founding fathers lived well into their 80s. That's because people got old. It's that people died. A lot more people died young. But once you got into your adult years, probably past 40 or 50, you probably were going to live another 20, 30 years. Just like you do now. Now the reason our life expectancy is higher is because we've reduced infant mortality very exponentially, basically. And some people are living longer, but I don't think it's necessarily a greater percentage of the population. So, but again, we can't look at history. You can't look at the Declaration of Independence as only applying to white men.
You're fucking a white male!
You kind of have to look at it as what that event allowed to go forward. And we've had a lot of work that we've done. So the idea that you would just say, well, I'm not going to celebrate this because, it didn't apply to me then. Does it apply to you now? Does it apply to your life now? Do the words of the Declaration of Independence mean something to you now? And guess what? If you're black like me, not all your ancestors were slaves, maybe. Probably not. You realize there were also free men all over the North that looked like you. Just a thought. All right, we're going to get into a couple of these articles in a minute, but let's say good morning to everybody because I haven't done that yet. First in the chat today was our good friend Black Hebrew Israelite.
That's right.
Who gets the bell? And welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. Also, good morning to Jonathan Peterson. What's up? Mike Savage. Blarg. Good morning, James Colley. How you doing? Good morning, Jim Beam. Hello. Why are you so angry? Because I don't know. Also, good morning, Advocatus Diaboli. Brett Ide. Nice new name that I haven't seen. Hopefully you've been here before, but if you haven't, just hit the subscribe button, click that bell. Good morning, also, Legit Low Talker. I see you. Also, good morning, Renee Mayette, Amy in Connecticut, Spud Gunn. Also, Aaron Meredith, what's up? People's Front of Canada, good morning. Hello, ex-Bubba Hotep. Ebony Williams, what's happening? Also, good morning to Nunya Beeswax, King Uncommon Law, James PFP. Nice to see you back, my friend. The Bosch Tubes in the house. Good morning. Let's see. Debbie Things, what's happening? Also, Gunfox61. Good morning, sir. Our Discord server administrator and super sponsor extraordinaire. Gunfox, also the first sponsor of the day, and
you are the new Streamlabs Superstar Sponsor
of the day. Good morning, Gunfox, who says, I think the left needs to look at intercity schools and learning to actually teach correctly because their GPA is less than a 2-year-old. Those are actually in the coughs are in the thing here. Hell, most liberal city school kids can't read or write, so they can fuck off. hell, the kids or the adults that aren't helping those kids. Let's say the adults. The kids are okay. Anyway, by the way, I do have my cup of reparations right here, and it is good. Anyway, thank you, GunFox61. I appreciate you sponsoring the show. If you'd like to sponsor the show, there's links in the chat somewhere, and there's links in the description down below if you want to be a sponsor. Also, please, while you're here, if you like what happens here on this show, share the stream out. Let's see if we can get 60 people in here at one time. So now there's my challenge, everybody. Get 60 people here. Figure it out. I don't know how to do it. Just hit the share, go say, come on over, come watch this show, and we'll see if we can get 60 people in the show. Also, if you would like to leave a comment in the comment section, if you're watching on replay or if you're coming in late, and I put a comment in the comment section to let me know you were here if I haven't talked to you during the show. So, all right. Now, what prompted this title was something one of our squad members, Representative Cori Bush, put out on Twitter yesterday, and she got hammered for it, and I think rightly so. But what she put on Twitter yesterday was what made a lot of people mad, and you know what, I don't get mad about this kind of stuff. Like, you know, Gwen Berry and her little protest because she was mad the national anthem was playing, because someone told her about that third verse and told her that they were celebrating slaves being murdered, and that's not what the line says at all, or not what the line means at all. But that's, you know, here's the thing, the beauty of this country is that you can protest like that and not be thrown in jail. That's part of the freedom that we are allowed in this country. Now, you don't have freedom from criticism, but her protest, as much as I think it's stupid as fuck, that's America, baby. You can do that and not be in trouble, I guess, with the authorities. Although I'm beginning to wonder if that's going to last the way things are going, that you can say things and do things and you know, you're allowed to protest in this country peacefully. But her protest, at least it was a peaceful protest. You know, I'll give her that much. I think what she did was stupid, and if you want to represent this country, you should represent it all, right? But I completely disagree with her protest, but hey, welcome to America. You can do that here. You can't do that in many countries. If you did that in some countries, oh boy, you'd have some hell to pay. So, and I don't even think she should be kicked off the team. I just think, it's disrespectful. Yes, you're allowed. That's the beauty of America. You're allowed to be disrespectful. I think it's stupid. But anyway, so Cori Bush yesterday said that July 4th is for white people. Black people still aren't free, and America's stolen land. Independence Day is about, this is a Breitbart article, so take it for what it is. But here's what, I didn't want to read it. I'm just going to show you the, it was all over Twitter. Things like this were all over Twitter yesterday. It was kind of pissing me off. But again, I just told you my point, that the idea, well, and let me stick with the article real quick. So she tweeted, when they say that the 4th of July is about American freedom, remember this: the freedom they're referring to is for white people. This land is stolen and black people still aren't free. Now, the obvious thing that many of you have already mentioned in the chat is the fact that this woman is in the United States Congress. God, this former nurse, she's still a nurse, I guess, because once you get your credentials, you're still a nurse. But this is a member of Congress who happens to be a black people, and that's unusual, unfortunate. So Bush is. So anyway, they say, let's see, in accordance with the left-wing style pushed by the news media capitalizing black but not white, in reference to people Bush tweeted when, we said that. Bush's congressional campaign in 2020 aligned itself with the Black Lives Matter apparatus. She became the first black congresswoman from Missouri. She has regularly framed politics in racial terms, using phrases such as white supremacy, systemic racism, black liberation, and racial justice, and structural inequity. Yeah, it's not structural. It's you moron. Anyway, she called for unspecified reparations in pursuit of equity. If ever you hear the word equity, run. According to Bush, oppression to the neo-Marxist paradigm of critical race theory is a racist dog whistle. In May, she used the leftist neologism, birthing people, while alleging that doctors don't care about the pain of blacks. She tweeted, every day, black birthing people and our babies die because our doctors don't believe our pain. My children almost became a statistic. I almost became a statistic. I testified about my experiences. Well, she's a nurse, but I don't, anyway. So this is back when she wrote the everyday black birthing people and our babies die because our doctors don't believe our pain. So anyway, so she's part of the squad. She's actively wants communism, whatever. But here's the thing. She is a member of Congress. Somehow, some way, her black skin did not stop her from becoming a congressman. Ebony, exactly. I've never been a slave. I've never not been free. I've never not been able to pursue my dreams. Now, when I was a kid, I'm a lot older than a lot of you probably, or some of you, I don't know. Most of you, some of you, whatever. I'm an old guy. And I lived, because I was born in early mid 60s. And so there were still people using that old N-word as a descriptor of me in the full hard R way. And I was like, well, words never hurt me. But as I've grown, I've watched how that was just stupid people doing that usually, never educated people. But I've never been able to not pursue my dreams. But one of my other grandmother, my dad or my mom's side, she was a English teacher. She taught at a university in the summer, and she always said, you know what, just do what you're supposed to do, keep your nose clean, and work hard, and you can get and do whatever you want. And it always came. It's weird how it always came true. It's just weird. When I worked hard, I got good grades in school. It's amazing how things just worked out for me, and staying out of trouble. And my parents being educators were very adept at keeping me busy with things and allowing me to try things and do things. And I'm very fortunate in that matter. The privilege I have is from the fact that my parents and my grandparents, at least one of them, were educators and worked hard to make sure that I had a decent life and my sister had a decent life, and that we got to try things. And sometimes it was to their financial detriment that we got to try things, but they made sure that we, and even simple things like, when I was adopted when I was 4, right? And I remember the thing that the one thing I remember doing all the time is we were always reading. Like my mom would always be reading to me, and I learned how to read pretty quickly just because we were always reading, and so I got a love for reading and just kept reading all the time. And I learned a lot from that. I learned how, it's funny because I tell people all the time, when they have kids, I said, start reading to them even before they can talk. Start reading to them every day. Even if it's just a short book, read to them every day. And they'll develop language skills a lot faster, and they'll learn how to speak a lot faster. And don't talk baby talk. Just read to them, and they will learn to speak. And my kids, both, we did that with my kids, and they were, they were big time readers. They started reading themselves, and their use of language was adult when they were little kids. When they were, my daughter, 4 years old, would read. It was funny. My daughter used to correct us on how to spell things sometimes, which was funny when she was 4 because she's a little kid. Anyway, I've told stories about that. But anyway, the idea that we were not free. How are we not free? How is a congresswoman, a woman elected to the United States House of Representatives, not free? So needless to say, she got a little pushback. Hang on, I'm gonna skip that one. We'll get to Maxine Waters later. So a lot of people, a lot of black Americans were blasting Cori Bush for claiming that black people aren't free in the United States. Real quick, let me do this. Thank you, Bubba Hotep, for sponsoring the show, who says that poor... Oh, let me... Wait, the music stopped. Bubba... Oh, I see. Oh, Bubba Hotep has a very sincere and an important message for Cori Bush. Thank you for the bullet, aka 357. Let me give this hang on a second. Let me go back here. Let me give this the proper I was going to say solence, but that's not a word, is it? Anyway. Bubba Hotep says, that poor unfree woman who is a partial leader of the most powerful country on the planet. I have misplaced my tiny violin, so unfortunately I can't play for her. I added a couple adjectives in there. Hotep, but thank you so much for the bullet, aka 357, in the via Streamlabs. Also, Gunfox61, okay. Now, Gunfox61 gives us a little bit more, what's the word? Let's just say a slightly more aggressive take, who says, we need to bring back better dead than red ideas and anti-communist posters. Communists are evil. Report all communists to your local American Empire agent today. Communists want you in chains. Keep watching. The Reds are always planning. And thank you, Bubba Hotep and Gunfox61. I appreciate that. Yes, ACAB, all commies are bastards. Okay, back to this article. Thank you, guys. So, far left Representative Cori Bush, Missouri, faced widespread backlash. Yes, sir. Widespread backlash on Sunday after she demonized the United States on the 4th of July by falsely claiming that blacks are still not free. We already know the tweet. Well, Daryl B. Anderson, podcast host, says, Cori Bush is an angry black woman, a very angry black woman. Her anger is eating her alive from inside out. I pity her because the freedom she seeks is not the freedom she needs. As such, freedom will continue to evade her as long as she carries that anger within her heart. Now, I don't necessarily need a brother talking about angry black women, because that's one of those tropes that people get a little upset about. But it is brother doing it. I don't know anything about Daryl B. Anderson. But anyway, that's an interesting way to put it. Leo Terrell, the commentator, he used to be the liberal. Remember when Leo Terrell, if you're familiar with Fox News, Leo Terrell used to be the kind of the liberal black guy that came on to scream and yell at the conservatives, and all of a sudden he kind of flipped. Like, I think he's been around those Fox people for a long time, and he's flipped, and now he's almost a conservative because he became a Trump supporter and all this stuff. Anyway. And Leo Terrell never really minces words. He says, do not respond to this idiot. She just wants attention. She hates herself. I don't know if she hates herself, but she certainly has a lot of animosity towards our country based on, I don't know. A lot of people believe that we, as in people with the higher melanin content, are some people actually believe we're being hunted down, that there's a genocide going on. But I don't think, as much as you know, we get, and plus part of it's because we promote every Man Bites Dog event. Okay, we promote the rare, and to make it seem common versus what's really killing us, and I mean melanin gifted people, right? And so if that's all you see and that's all you believe, because you only believe what you see on news and what's on the signs at the protest, then I can understand why some people might believe that. But does she hate herself? I don't know. I don't know. Kim Klacik, the former GOP congressional candidate, said, I could say something rude, but I think it's best to make sure we have someone running against her, ensure that that individual has our full support along with access to every resource necessary to take her seat in 2022. And you know what? Whatever you think of Kim Klacik, she did run in a district that she had almost no chance of winning. But if we are to make headway in some of these congressional districts, you have to have someone running, even if you know they're going to lose. And I salute her for doing that, because, you know, in a lot of districts, a lot of places where people are like, oh, no, these people never vote for a Republican. Well, maybe they will. I mean, Kim Klacik had 5 times as many votes as the last Republican who ran in that district. So never say never, and you can't win if you don't play. You can't even get a start if you don't play. And so I salute people like Kimberly Klacik. I salute the guy who ran in Ilhan Omar's district. I mean, you got to run. You got to be there. Katrina Pearson, the political advisor for who was a political advisor to the Trump campaign for a while. Apparently, history continues to escape black Democrats who probably never heard of Crispus Attucks. But then these are the same people that continue to be and vote for Democrats who marginalize, compartmentalize, and victimize minorities in this country, then complain. You know, and like I said earlier, part of it is we never hear about the black patriots. We never hear, you know, and it's interesting because I watched a video by some comedian, I don't even know his name, and he was in Minneapolis, and he was doing this like 10 question things, and then you get a couple bucks. And some of the questions were, you know, can you name a black billionaire? Okay. Or can you name are there any black Supreme Court justices? It's just questions like that. And nobody, you know, now obviously he only showed the ones that didn't know the answers, but we don't hear about these other people in history. We don't hear about, again, and I wish I can't remember his name off the top of my head. And this is the same thing here. One of the heroes at Fort McHenry in the War of 1812, when Francis Scott Key was on that British ship that was attacking Fort McHenry, one of the heroes of that day was a black man. That was on the United States side. So I doubt if Francis Scott Key, when he was talking about hirelings and slaves could not be saved from the grave, he wasn't talking about him. He was talking about the people fighting for the British. But that's the problem. We need to hear more about the Crispus Attucks, the first man who died in the Revolutionary War. At the time, in fact, it's interesting because that's when the press gangs, the people who came in and tried to kidnap people to fight on the British ships, were coming through the town. Anyway, Thomas Chatterton Williams. I'm a 40-year-old American descendant of slaves. The year is 2021, and I have been free my entire life. Another thought, who is the they in this construction? The implication is that black people, and presumably other non-whites, uniformly feel alienated from such notions of freedom. This should shock Ralph Ellison, Albert Mary, Stanley Crouch, and countless anonymous others. And then Allie Beth Stuckley, she's not black. But other responses from other people. So if you want to see that, that'll be, by the way, as you know, if you've been here before often, I put all the links to every article and video or whatever into a single tab in the description down below immediately after the show. And you can check down there if you want to see the rest of the responses to Cori Bush on Twitter. Good morning to the gayest person on YouTube. Nice to see you. Also, Hig, what's happening? Hello, Cindy in the background. Good morning, Chris Jones, Tyler F., and did I miss anybody? I know Sapphire Dragons. Oh, no, I didn't see Sapphire Dragon. That's Spud Gun. If I missed you, just keep chatting. I'll catch up with you. All right. So Cori Bush is not the only one. In fact, not by far. There were many people bashing the United States on the 4th of July. One of them was Maxine Waters, of course. Auntie Maxie. You know, never mind. I'm not going to use her voice because I'll choke. Anyway, so Maxine Waters had a little 4th of July rant also. Democratic California Representative Maxine Waters went on an anti-American Twitter rant Sunday. In one tweet, Waters attacked the Declaration of Independence and questioned its words and meanings. July 4th, and so the Declaration of Independence says all men are created equal. Equal to what? What men? Only white men? Isn't it something that they wrote in 1776 when African Americans were enslaved? They weren't thinking about us then, but we're thinking about us now. Well, Maxine, apparently you forgot that not all African Americans were enslaved, and not only black people were enslaved, and not only enslaved by white men. It was a time that we wish didn't happen, but hey, it's history. You can't do nothing about it. Were you enslaved, Maxine Waters? And do the Declaration of Independence words today have any meaning to you now? Whatever. Waters also appeared to suggest America is a racist country. She mentioned voter reform laws, and she brought up the names of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Michael Brown, Sandra Bland, and Tamir Rice. All those names that you know by heart because we talk about them all the time. But I'm sure there's plenty of dead black people that you haven't mentioned their names because they haven't been killed by the right demographic, Auntie Maxine. And there are exponentially times more of them than there are of these 5 names that you mention, or the 100 names that you can mention over the last 20 years, or whatever you want when you want to make it. The only ones that get promoted have to be killed by the correct demographic and profession, or profession. We'll get into that in a minute. So she continues further. The Declaration of Independence says we hold these truths to be self-evident, yet 17 states have enacted voter suppression laws. Have they now? Have they now? I got a question. When you say voter suppression laws, do you mean that there are going to be rules for voting like there have always been? And let me compare those rules for voting now as to rules for voting 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Are they more lenient or are they more restrictive now? No, they're not more restrictive now. They're more lenient because they've added several new ways to vote, but they've made some rules behind them so people don't cheat like, well, I can't talk about this last election, but you know what I'm saying? Holy shit. Thank you, GunFox61, for another almost 5. Any company that supports China supports slave labor and genocide. China supports Democrats, and California Pedo Joe supports China and can only read what his handlers write. 80 million voted for him, LOL. More like 80 million dead and brain dead people. Well, not 80 million dead and brain dead people, but there's a large number that we can document. Thank you, GunFox61. I appreciate the sponsoring of the show. And then else they mentioned Cori Bush's crap. It's interesting. Some people spoke out about anti-American sentiment in the tweets of U.S. Representatives of the U.S. Reps. Actor Dean Cain called such tweets divisive, and they do nothing to help Americans. They don't do anything. Support this person at your own peril. Dangerous, divisive rhetoric does nothing to help the USA or its citizens. It's now it's almost a point where they are they're seeking more attention to themselves, and they get it. And I'm in the United States of whatever, but not to be outdone. NPR, National Public Radio, which basically gets 2% of its funding from grants that were given to other places by the federal government. Also trashes the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July by adding an editor's note to warn of racist slur. National Public Radio denounced the Declaration of Independence. Well, I don't know that they denounced. Did they? They denounced sort of. Here's what they wrote. 245 years ago today, leaders representing 13 British colonies signed a document to declare independence. As they tweeted link to an article about its actual annual reading of the founding document, it says that all men are created equal, but women, enslaved people, indigenous people, and many others were not held as equal at the time. No shit. Again. We can look at this document in a historical context and think about how this single event got us to where we are today. It doesn't have to be a negative. Obviously, the country has had its issues, but we can't, it's still the fact that with this document is what started this country, which has blossomed into this thing that has gotten better and better for all people who live here. And because it was possible due to these people who came up with the Declaration of Independence and the people who wrote our Constitution, that has allowed us to grow into what that initial document means. And the idea that, here's the other part. I always laugh when they do this. That says all men are created equal, but women, stop. Because they used men as a generic human. All humans are created equal, or something like that. So, okay, and many others were not held as equal at that time. Real quick, Black Hebrew Israelites, thank you for the deuce via Streamlabs, who says, I nominate Bill Cosby to run for Cory Bush's seat as reparation.
That's right.
As a newly freed black man, he would donate his pudding pop to all the squad.
That's right.
Thank you, Black Hebrew Israelite. Thank you for the thank you for the comic relief. That's awesome. Anyway, then they included the document also includes a racist slur against indigenous Americans. I guess I'll have to take a look at that. Thank you, ex-Baba Hotep, with another bullet. It was a framework to help create a more perfect union to right the plights of the times. Just because the plights existed when it was written means jack fucking shit. Yes, I agree. Thank you, ex-Baba Hotep. Spot on. Anyway, author David Troyer, who is Ojibwe, says there is a lot of diversity of opinion and thought among Native Americans, a community of more than 5 million people, about the document's words. NPR continued, adding a quote from Troyer, quote, "We remain committed to forcing this country to live up to its own stated ideals." Troyer, NPR explains, focuses on the role of Indigenous Americans and the push for equality and equity. Run. So then they, I'm trying to figure out what they were talking about as far as the, I'm not sure what the racist slur is. So here it is. 245 years ago, leaders representing 13 British colonies signed this document. The document also includes a racist slur against Indigenous Americans. I don't know where that is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back in the end here because they got the whole thread. Basically, the thread itself is the entire Declaration of Independence. But here it is. Here's part of the thread. In this thread, the Declaration, you can see a document with flaws and deeply ingrained hypocrisies. It also laid the foundation for this country's collective aspirations, the hopes for what America could be. Yeah, how about writing that part and emphasizing that part? Yes, we know it wasn't perfect. Grammar, spelling, and punctuation is provided by the National Archives, so we'll get to that in a minute. Real quick, before I move on, let me do a couple thank yous real quick here. Thank you to Tyler F., to Renee Mayette, and to Willett Forge for retweeting the show out this morning. Please share the stream out. Also, let's see, somebody else did too earlier, or maybe not. Oh, that's it. That's it. Hey, more people share the stream. Come on now. Let's get some people in here. All right, let's keep, and then let's see. So I want to move on though to this article from what is it, American Greatness. Patriotic feelings abides, but its expression varies widely. A new poll from Real Clear Politics demonstrates some interesting findings about how Americans view their country. This is and it's a very interesting article. We'll go through most of it because I wanted to emphasize this one today because it's you know, it's appropriate for our Independence Day celebration. Although debates over the meaning of patriotism and a democracy date to Demosthenes warning ancient Greeks about their civic complacence, in America, the phrase, quote, "my country, right or wrong," end quote, dates to a specific alcohol-fueled dinner in 1816 in the Virginia naval town of Norfolk. The dignitaries present were celebrating a military victory by the U.S. Navy off the Barbary Coast. The first toast that night paid homage to a poem penned 2 years earlier in Baltimore celebrating another naval battle, the Star-Spangled Banner. Long may it wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. As the wine flowed freely, the hero of the hour, the conqueror of the Barbary pirates, the newspaper called him, arose to give a toast. Quote, "Our country," said Commodore Stephen Decatur, "in the intercourse with foreign nations, may she always be in the right and always successful, right or wrong." Hi, Cindy. Dropped in to hit the like button and share the stream. You are awesome. Love you. Thank you. Widely reprinted at the time, Decatur's conditional hope that America could occupy the moral high ground was eventually distilled to the more jingoistic, quote, "my country, right or wrong," end quote. That is one notion of patriotism. There are many others. Defining love of country has long been a sensitive topic, and in the highly polarized current political environment, it has a distinctly partisan cast. Patriotism is also understood differently along racial and gender lines. Today, it exists upon stark generational fault lines as well. In the period between Juneteenth and July 4th, Real Clear Opinion Research delved into these waters. Specifically, the survey of 1,762 registered voters was conducted June 21st to 24th. Its findings are instructive for the leaders of America's two dominant political parties, as well as for any citizen concerned about where this nation is heading. That would be me. For starters, fully 85% of Americans consider themselves patriotic. Demosthenes would have approved, but what that implies in word and deed varies greatly. As such, we don't all feel the same way. One example, 57% of male voters in this country consider themselves very patriotic compared to 43% of women. The overall number of whites who describe themselves as very patriotic is significantly higher, 58%, than for African Americans, 37%, Hispanics, 36%, or Asian Americans, 28%. Republicans, 68%, are much more willing to describe themselves this way than Democrats or independents, both of whom are around 40%. This is very patriotic, not just patriotic. For Republicans who watch Fox News, this number is even higher, 74% for Fox News Republicans compared to 58% of other Republicans. There is an income gap in professed patriotism too, although little difference by education levels among whites. Yet, the survey also revealed that in the past year, a vast majority of voters engaged in a range of activities that most Americans consider expression of their patriotism, and that with some of these, there is little partisan difference. These range from wearing a mask to prevent the spread of COVID-19, 91%, to voting in a national election, 88%. 2/3 of respondents said during the previous year they had thanked a veteran or a member of the U.S. Armed Forces for their service, and 2/3 also received the stab. And while there is partisan breakdown in those responses, more Republicans paid their respects to veterans while more Democrats got their stabs. The more interesting finding is that Americans recognize the wide array of measures as patriotic. And they do so even for gestures they themselves do not take. For instance, only 48% of voters flew an American flag last year, but 76% acknowledge that flying the flag is patriotic. Likewise, while only 34% they participated in community service last year, 63% consider volunteering an expression of love of country. Now that's something that's interesting because that's a very, very American thing. Volunteerism, being charitable, and things like that. And I didn't really realize that until I was talking to people from other countries. That's a huge thing in the United States for some reason. Anyway, the modern interpretation of patriotism is as diverse as the country the flag represents, said John Della Volpe, director of polling for Real Clear Opinion Research. It is not owned by one party or platform. We found that at least 3 in 4 members of every major subgroup of American voters profess love for their country, and tens of millions of Democrats, Republicans, and independent voters are regularly engaged in activities that exhibit their respect for the country and for those who sacrifice to serve and make it better. Della Volpe, who also directs polling for Harvard University's Institute of Politics, has delved deeply into American views of themselves and their political system for Real Clear Politics since his October 2018 poll revealed the existence of 5 distinct political tribes. That survey, done near the halfway point of the Trump presidency, is in some ways a bookend to the current study. In that first poll, respondents were queried about their feelings regarding a series of images ranging from U.S. Marines in combat and an American flag on the side of a barn to photographs of an interracial couple and black football players kneeling during the Star-Spangled Banner. A similar method was employed in the latest survey. Respondents were shown a series of 17 images, 13 of scenes from American life and 4 of specific politicians, and asked to rank how much that image represented what is right about America. With only 3 exceptions, there were double-digit differences between Republicans and Democrats. This is understandable when it comes to political figures such as Joe Biden and Donald Trump, but it's somewhat disconcerting to learn that 53% of Republicans think a photo of Yom Kippur worshipers express something good about America, while only 44% of Democrats feel the same way. That's interesting. That's interesting. Who talks about anti-Semitism more? Just curious. It's very curious. For independents, it was 53%. So that's fascinating. Other dichotomies included a photo depicting U.S. military personnel doing global humanitarian work, 78% of Republicans, 59% of Democrats, 63% of independents, or a simple photo of the U.S. flag on a barn, 80% of Republicans, 52% of Democrats, and 58% of independents. To put it simply, judging by traditional measures of patriotism, Republicans score higher, but the modern Democratic Party is younger, more female, more ethnically diverse, and more attuned to the values and priorities of the LGBT movement. This emerging Democratic majority ranked a picture of a swearing-in ceremony for new immigrants as higher than Republicans, 46%, 34%, as well as for a Chinese New Year parade, which Democrats approved by a 2-to-1 margin over Republicans. Only 37% of Democrats view a depiction of Wall Street in favorable patriotic terms, compared to 52% of Republicans. The coronavirus pandemic continues to be an issue that divides us. Fully 72% of Democrats ranked a depiction of a stupid 19 vaccine as pro-American, much higher than either Republicans or independents. One of the largest gaps was for a picture of a Black Lives Matter protest march honoring George Floyd. 46% of Democrats approved of this image, while only 16% of Republicans did so. Given the rhetoric among political elites and in the mainstream media, this 46% figure seems low. Likewise, despite the media attention given to transsexual rights, only 33% of Democrats responded positively to an image of a transgender flag, not much too higher than Republicans, 29%, and independents, 27%. Now that's interesting. Independents were even lower than Republicans. For those, thank you, Black Hebrew Israelite.
That's right.
Who says, Happy Colonizer Freedom Day, white people. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
You're a lying dog
That's
face.
right.
Whoops, wrong one.
That's right.
Thank you, Black Israelite. Happy Colonizer Freedom Day. Now, he didn't say, he said wipe people, as in the wiped and the unwiped. So just making sure you heard that right. Anyway, for those who value lowering the temperature on discussion about the meaning of patriotism, the best news out of this section of the poll dealing with images was that only 14% of Americans thought a picture of the January 6th riots at the U.S. Capitol was positive, including fewer than 1 in 5 Republicans. Another intriguing finding concerned voters' reactions to critical race theory. Although this subject has galvanized conservative media and Republican politicians, the public apparently is far less convinced that it constitutes a threat to national cohesiveness. For one thing, a majority of Americans don't know much about CRT, and for that matter are unfamiliar with the New York Times controversial 1619 Project and the concept of American exceptionalism. Only 43% of voters expressed familiarity with critical race theory, a number that didn't vary much by age or race, although suburbanites and college-educated respondents knew more about it than rural voters or those without college degrees. Not surprisingly, given the amount of airtime it has received, Republicans who watch Fox News are much more likely than Republicans who don't regularly Fox News to know about CRT. Yet, most respondents did not tend to recoil from the term in discuss. When asked whether they supported CRT or not without any background information provided, 42% expressed support compared to 36% in opposition, with 22% expressing no opinion. When it was defined for them in the survey, the backing for the concept actually rose. Here's that definition, their definition of it. Do you support or oppose teaching K through 12 public schools about how the legacy of racism and Jim Crow remains embedded in modern day society through laws and institutions that were fundamental in shaping American societies? Oh my God, that's not critical race theory. But anyway, here were the responses. You could look at that later. Progressives will feel good about those numbers, but conservatives can cheer themselves with this thought. As Independence Day approaches, the Real Clear Opinion Research survey also shows that American exceptionalism is alive and well with the hearts of most voters. 9 out of 10 respondents believe that the United States continues to do a lot of good in the world. Now, see, there's another problem. That's not the definition of American exceptionalism. Oh, good Lord. And that's the problem. People, okay, so while only 32% of voters today assert, as almost all of the greatest generation believe, that America is exceptional, it is the moral leader of the world. That's not the definition of American exceptionalism. But anyway, and that's the problem. People hear that phrase and that's what they think it means. But that's not it. Only 10% agree with the statement, America does more harm than good in the world. Well, good. We do much more good than harm in the world. At least we try. In other words, we do good, but we should aspire to do better. This is what this is really what Commodore Decatur was saying in Norfolk 205 years ago, and it's what U.S. Senator Carl Schurz said more directly while paraphrasing and improving upon Decatur's toast in 1873 during a fiery Senate debate. Schurz was a Prussian immigrant whom Wisconsin Senator Matthew Carpenter accused in so many words of putting foreign interests ahead of our own during a legislative fight over selling surplus weapons to France. You see, even back then, we argued about patriotism, not to mention the issues of immigration, arms sales, and gun control. But Schurz had been a friend of Abraham Lincoln, an ardent abolitionist and an early Republican who made political speeches, often in German, to turn out immigrant voters for Lincoln. He also served in the Union Army with distinction during the Civil War, commanding troops at Second Bull Run, Chancellorsville, and Gettysburg. He spoke English as well as he did German. He responded to Senator Carpenter that he would match his record of service to America with anyone before adding this, quote, "The senator from Wisconsin cannot frighten me by exclaiming, quote, 'my country right or wrong.' In one sense, I say so too. My country, and my country is the great American Republic. My country right or wrong. If right, to be kept right, and if wrong, to be set right." Ponder on that for a moment. All right. We'll take a real short break and we'll get back and we'll hit some headlines and get the hell out of here. Thank you for your patience.
Hey everybody, it's me, Marty. Welcome to the Morning Night Live. I hope you're enjoying the show. The Morning Night Live is sponsored by you, the viewers of the Morning Night Live. Please, if you have a moment, take time to share this stream by hitting that little arrow down below or up here if you're on a mobile. And please hit the like button. I know you like it if you're still here and you're still watching. And finally, if you want to support the show, you can do that through your donations and super chats, which are in the description down below. You can do that at Streamlabs link or at PDawgKnight.live. That every little bit helps. And thank you for watching. Now back to the show.
All right, and we are back. So let's get into some of the interesting news over the weekend. This was, I did not even hear about this till this morning, but apparently 11 members of the heavily armed Rise the Moors group arrested after a 9-hour standoff with police. Did you hear about this? I did not. Of course, I wasn't really paying attention to the news over the weekend, but I didn't hear about it on Twitter. I didn't hear about it anywhere. What is Rise the Moors and why is the group carrying a Moroccan flag? According to Massachusetts, authorities in Massachusetts are wondering the same damn thing this morning after 9 heavily armed men identifying as members of the group known as Rise of the Moors were confronted by a lone state trooper in an emergency lane on Interstate 95. The men were armed with pistols and long guns and dressed in camo. When asked to produce gun licenses, they politely refused. You know what? Thou shalt not infringe, but let's find out what's going on here. Well, no, this did not turn out good. But anyway, they politely refused, claiming they were legally armed because they weren't traveling through Massachusetts and they were traveling through Massachusetts and hadn't intended to stop. The state policeman called for backup, and before too long, the Rise of Moors contingent was surrounded by armed state and local policemen. A standoff of sorts ensued, and that ended this morning when authorities took the men into custody. Jamal Talib Abdullah Bey disputed the notion that the group is anti-government. We are not anti-government. We're not anti-police. We're not sovereign citizens. We're not black identity extremists, Bey said during a live stream video posted on YouTube Saturday morning. He believes the group is traveling legally by abiding by federal laws, though not acknowledging Massachusetts laws, which he does not believe apply to the group as they do not intend to stop in Massachusetts. I'm fascinated by this. Real quick, let's thank you X-Baba Hotep with another bullet, but the 556 variety, who says through Streamlabs, people didn't know what CRT was because they didn't agree with our definition or CRT. Language will be our downfall when we can't agree on what things mean. We could actually agree on a concept, but if we are basically hearing different things. How can we? Yeah, you got it. Yes. Yes. Yeah, the definition they gave was not, oh my gosh, it was so not what it was. And that's why the people who are complaining about the people who are against CRT like to say, well, they don't want to teach about history. They don't want to teach about slavery. They don't want to teach about all these bad stuff. No. We already teach those things. CRT is none of those. CRT is not about history. CRT is about relationships between different defined groups, and it's about power. And they're saying that this is when you define one as oppressor and one as oppressed, and that is inherent because of unmitigatable characteristics of each of the groups. It's a dangerous idea. Anyway, good morning, Random American, by the way. Take it to the Supreme Court, shall not be infringed. Yeah, I'm fascinated. I don't know, were these guys breaking laws? And granted, they said they were not. Okay, so this is a fascinating thing here. I expressed here. Let me see what this guy says. Hopefully, it'll play on PJ.
It's disrespectful to our current armed servicemen and women, and the fact that you're allowing the media to portray us as anti-government after I expressed to you multiple times we're not anti-government. It's violating my trust with you guys. So I'm just informing you, we're not going to escalate anything any further. We're gonna continue to not point our arms at you, because that's not what we're here for. That's not what we plan to do today. We're not going to threaten you guys. We're not gonna coerce you guys. We're not gonna make you guys feel threatened in any type of way. We're not going to do any shady movements or anything like that to make you guys feel threatened. We're not gonna do anything like that. So at most, what's going to happen is we're gonna get so fatigued to the point where it's easier for you to violate us, because we're going to be so weak from not eating and drinking that you're just going to be able to arrest us. That's really what's going to happen. And you're probably going to have to bring me out on a stretcher. So please have paramedics ready, because I'm already fatigued.
The last thing we want is to have you guys be hurt. Okay? And I think the most important thing that you guys can do now is show the world and show with the media that you are what you say.
Who's that?
That this is a violation of your constitutional rights, and you're ready to do it.
He was just arrested on camera.
So,
Him.
the best way to do that, my brother,
He was just arrested on camera?
Oh, okay. I'm tripping.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm ensuring your safety. No, I already don't have that window because I'm already blocked on social media. Okay, I hear you, and I'm pretty sure you mean what you're saying. I'm pretty sure you're not a guy that's just gonna lie.
Tell him to contact Channel 5 and
Oh, yeah.
and correct what they just put on, because I'm watching it right now.
Perfect. One of my men is watching Channel 5 right now, and he asked if you can contact them and have them correct what they just put out, because it's clearly a lie.
This is
You have to understand that we cannot control what they say.
Yes, but you can control their access to speak to us. Is what you can do.
Interesting. Now, interesting. I don't think that these guys were, whatever they were doing, they were going somewhere else. Okay, so anyway, the scene from the distance looking like northbound. Okay, that's a picture there. The immediate assumption of the media is that these guys are anti-government wackos. Our friends at the Southern Poverty Law Center identified the group as an offshoot of the Sovereign Citizens Movement. The Moorish Sovereign Citizen Movement is a collection of independent organizations and lone individuals that emerged in the early 1990s as an offshoot of the anti-government Sovereign Citizen Movement, which believes that individual citizens hold sovereignty over and are independent of the authority of federal and state governments. The SPLC says of the movement, Moorish sovereigns espouse an interpretation of the sovereign doctrine that African Americans constitute an elite class within American society with special rights and privileges that convey them a sovereign immunity, place them beyond federal and state authority. Now, it's fascinating, though. They said that they were following federal laws, or they weren't staying in Massachusetts. They were transporting through Massachusetts. I don't know what I don't know what reason that they had to stop them. If they were doing something illegal, I don't know. But anyway, and I don't trust the Southern Poverty Law Center to be correct on anything because they have their own agenda. But anyway, Mr. Bay denies any connection to the sovereign citizens movement or any anti-government movement militia. They have apparently had a few skirmishes with police due to their unique take on gun rights. Otherwise, they don't appear to be much of a threat. Thankfully, the state police don't see them as much of a threat either. State Police Colonel Christopher Mason says his troopers encounter citizen groups like this on a regular basis. He says, I'm not saying that this group does, but we have had these encounters before in the past. We're trained to these encounters. We very much understand, I guess, the philosophy that underlies the mindset, and we train our officers actually at the academy on these interactions and how to de-escalate those situations and how to engage with people that have that philosophy and mindset and resolve these situations, in a peaceful manner, which is what we're committed to doing today. Fact is, it's likely no one in Massachusetts was in any danger from these people. Ding! They were minding their own business on their way to a farm in Maine where they planned to train. But once the trooper stopped to see if he could offer assistance of 2 broken down cars on the side of the interstate, he was forced to enforce Massachusetts law. The troopers blame us. It's the law that's the problem. Yeah, the law is the problem. They weren't doing anything. And Second Amendment rights should still apply in Massachusetts. So fascinating. All right, let's keep moving here. So we heard about this rabbi who was stabbed in Boston. Khalid Awad stabbed Rabbi Shlomo Noginsky 8 times on Thursday afternoon. Predictably, International Business Times reported on Saturday that the police haven't yet established a motive for the stabbing, and the investigation of the incidents continues. Yeah, this is one of real head scratchers. Khalid Awad doesn't seem to be a white supremacist, but what else could he possibly be? Help us, Merrick Garland, help us! Garland has so far remained mum, but Awad's old roommates and friends at the University of Southern Florida have been more forthright. CBS reported Friday that one of Awad's old school chums, Eric Valiente, said that while they were together in college together, Awad started becoming violent. Not only that, he was very much anti-Semitic. He would say like all the types of Jewish jokes. I thought he was joking at first, and then I started seeing the seriousness in his comments. He disgusted me at that point. I wanted nothing to do with the guy. At this point, I was a little scared of him. I was scared of what he was capable of because I realized he's a very dark person. So anyway, this and you can read the rest of this as Robert Spencer has it here. So you read about that. Well, it's interesting because the squad hasn't really said anything about this. I mean, this is an anti-Semitic attack in the United States of America, and you'd think the squad would say something, but they, oh no, Omar said Jewish colleagues are not partners in justice. The far-left members of the Democratic squad have fallen largely silent on the Boston rabbi who was stabbed 8 times outside of a Jewish school, aside from Representative Ayanna Pressley, who represents the district where 24-year-old Khalid Awad nearly murdered Rabbi Shlomo Noginsky. None of the squad members have condemned the anti-Semitic attack. The Washington Free Beacon contacted each of the House Democrats associated with the squad, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Taliban, and Jamal Bowman. Oh, and Cori Bush, and none of them responded to the request for comment about the attack. Now, again, I hate this particular type of journalism where, well, we requested a response from them and they didn't respond. Well, when did you request? How often? Do they normally respond to requests from the Washington Free Beacon, who they probably see as a, right-wing, anti-democracy news outlet? But, you'd think one of them out of 5 would respond. The attack comes as liberals like Bowman call for members to be more outspoken about hateful rhetoric. The New York representative shared footage of a group of Israelis participating in an anti-Arab chant and challenged his colleagues to disavow racism wherever it exists. I represent many within the Jewish community who disavow and condemn this hateful language, Bowman wrote on Twitter. So why does only a portion of our Congress? Well, I don't think a whole lot of people in your squad was was when they were having the Palestinian protests, talking about the Jews and saying bad things. I don't remember you guys condemning that hateful rhetoric. So what the hell are you talking about? Anyway, the squad members are largely silent as Democrats face yet another reckoning on anti-Semitism in their ranks. Omar was criticized by a dozen of her Jewish colleagues after she compared America and Israel to terrorist groups. Omar on CNN this week lambasted her Jewish colleagues for criticizing her, saying that they were not partners in justice. Anyway, no surprise there. You can read the rest of that yourself. Let's see. We got, and you know how questioning your election results is a threat to our democracy? Well, that's only if you're a Republican, because Democrats can do it all day long. The Democratic primary for New York City mayoral race is a mess. Candidate Eric Adams raised concerns last week after more than 100,000 ballots mysteriously appeared and was mocked by some people for it, but then he turned out to be right. Now all of the candidates are still running and still in the running, want to be able to review ballots. Were we told that questioning the outcome of elections is a threat to democracy? I'm pretty sure we were. Good morning, Mr. Yes, I see you there. So all three candidates who are still in the running in New York City's Democratic mayoral race primary have filed legal action seeking the right to review the ongoing ranked choice vote tally. Civil rights attorney Maya Wiley filed a lawsuit Thursday in a state court in Brooklyn seeking to preserve a right to challenge the election results and asking for all the ballots that were cast or attempted to be cast be saved. This is a wide open race and as a standard procedure, my campaign filed a petition to preserve the right to challenge the results, should we believe it necessary, Wiley said in a statement Friday. Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams and former city sanitation commissioner Catherine Garcia filed similar legal actions on Wednesday. That was the day after New York City's Board of Elections posted vote totals for the June 22nd primary that erroneously included test data and then retracted them. Revised vote counts posted Wednesday showed Adams, the former police captain and state senator, leading Garcia by 15,755 votes. Wiley was practically tied with Garcia, falling just 374 votes behind in ranked choice analysis. Part of the problem is they're using ranked choice voting. Can you imagine if they used this shit nationwide, how big of a fiasco it would be? Of course, every state does their own election laws, and we should keep it that way. F HR1S1. Anyway, so ranked choice voting is like Common Core math. At some point, a progressive looked at something that's very simple and decided they could improve it by making it more complicated. The candidates are already signaling that they may sue over the results. Will they be accused of being a threat to democracy? Just wait and see. So anyway, moving on. This Supreme Court decision on Arizona election law is good news, but it's not all good news. On July 1st, the Supreme Court delivered its opinion on Brnovich versus DNC. In a 6-3 decision, SCOTUS upheld two common sense provisions in Arizona's election law. Ballot harvesting, which often involves partisan operatives collecting absentee ballots and delivering them to a polling location, will remain illegal in Arizona. Voters will also still be required to cast their votes in the appropriate precincts. So these states that are outlawing ballot harvesting, yeah, that. Thus, this ruling is a positive sign for how SCOTUS may rule in other lawsuits regarding election law. The decision signals that a majority of justices would likely not overrule state law if election provisions are applied neutrally, and the state offers many opportunities to vote. As Jason Sneed, Executive Director of Honest Elections, noted, once again, the Supreme Court recognized the crucial need to protect the credibility and integrity of our election system. In doing so, the court ruled in favor of laws so routine and commonplace that even Biden Justice Department told the court they did not violate the law. Critics who attack this ruling are defending a campaign tactic that has been abused to disenfranchise voters. Vote trafficking puts one person's right to vote in another person's hand. A bipartisan commission led by President Jimmy Carter recommended that states abolish it, and only 11% of voters think it should be legal. Arizona should not have to fight all the way to the Supreme Court to defend such a sensible policy. So now there is, what's the bad news here? Hang on a second here. Oh, well, the partisan battle over election security still rages, though. Two key legislative priorities for the Democrats are H.R. 1, the For the People Act, and H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Republicans filibustered the former in a straight party-line Senate vote, but the Brnovich decision suggests that neither would pass constitutional muster with the current court, as Elie Mistel, justice correspondent for The Nation, noted. Can Democrats read this decision and tell me how the hell either the For the People Act, the John Lewis Act, or anything else passes constitutional muster in front of SCOTUS? How? Oh, he wants to expand the court. Yay! F this guy. He's pushing for the far-left effort to politicize the courts by nominating enough new justices to outnumber those who typically vote using the constitutional text as a guide. As Democrat leadership picks up on this justification and massages and message text it, pressure will increase on holdouts to eliminate the filibuster. Senators Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema will be the subject of a relentless criticism as Democrats seek to take up H.R. 4 heading into 2022. Commission studies are already telling Democrats they have a messaging problem going into 2022. This news comes after predicted gains in the House in 2020 did not materialize, even when running against the Orange Man. But thus it will take a red wave so much as thus it will not take a red wave so much as a trickle in 2022 for Republicans to take both houses of Congress, effectively ending the Biden agenda. So, but if they can nuke the filibuster, they might get some shit passed. That would make it harder for, Republicans to win. So I guess that's the bad news. All right, let's keep going because I'm running out of time. I'm out of time, but we'll go. Let's talk about Joe Biden's 4th of July fail. And then I'll just leave the other articles in there for today. The other ones, here, let's just pop the headlines here. This is more, and it's the New York mayoral race shows it's well-off whites, not minorities who back far-left policies like defunding police. Yeah, we knew that already. Also, there's an article here from American Greatness about the promise of freedom. We don't need fuzzy platitudinous tweets about America from Republican politicians. What we need right now is what we might call politics for adults. It's an interesting article. You can check that out. Also, Facebook. I will go into that one. Let's talk about Joe real quick, and then we'll do that one. Then I'll get out of here, and you can just check the tabs yourself. Even Joe Biden isn't following his own 4th of July edict, and why not? No one else is either. Last March, still early in his days in office, the new president gave what may be the most depressing national address ever uttered in American life, eclipsing a day which will live in infamy. His effort was meant to set a tone to frighten people in getting the COVID stabs, but instead of encouraging Americans to beat the virus, he beat down Americans with things they knew all too well. His attempt backfired spectacularly, the same way it does when a reporter sticks a microphone in the face of a victim and asks, "How do you feel?" So here's Joe Biden. Or no, this is, what's this from? This is, I think it's from ABC. You lost your job, you closed your business, facing eviction, homelessness, hunger, a loss of control, maybe worst of all, a loss of hope. The big details and the small moments, weddings, birthdays, graduations, all things that needed to happen but didn't. Thanks for reminding me, Joe. God, I'm so depressed now. People want to know when all of this is to end, but Joe didn't give hope. He just served up another dish of despair. The first date, family reunions, the Sunday night rituals, it has all exacted a terrible cost on the psyche. So many of us grandparents haven't seen their grandchildren or children or grandchildren. Parents haven't seen their kids. Kids haven't seen their friends. The things we used to do that always filled us with joy have become things we couldn't do and broke our hearts. Too often we turned against one another. Then he slurred his way through more depression-inducing dread and then used July 4th as the chaser. The message: get a COVID shot. Demand your neighbors do so. Or Independence Day gets it. So here it is. But I need you, the American people. I need you. I need every American to do their part. And that's not hyperbole. I need you. I need you to get vaccinated when it's your turn and when you can find an opportunity and to help your family, your friends, your neighbors get vaccinated as well. Because here's the point. If we all do this, we all do our part. If we all do this together, by July 4th, there's a good chance you, your families and friends will be able to get together in your backyard or in your neighborhood and have a cookout or a barbecue. And so this is what his speech from a while back. And celebrate Independence Day. That doesn't mean large events with lots of people together, but it does mean small groups will be able to get together. After this long, hard year, we will make this Independence Day something truly special. We will not only mark our independence as a nation, but we will begin to mark our independence from this virus. But to get there, we can't let our guard down. On July 4th, with your loved ones, is the goal. A lot can happen. Conditions can change. The scientists have made it clear that things may get worse again. New variants of the virus spread. We have work to do to ensure everybody has confidence. So our message is this. Listen to Dr. Fauci, one of the most distinguished and trusted voices in the world. So Biden said his goal is 70% of American adults vaccinated in order to let the fireworks fly, but he didn't make it. Daily Mail reported last month that Biden wouldn't make his goal, but the White House has let that pass with barely a whisper. Unseemingly adds urgent. Unseemingly adds urging twerking grandmas to get the shot didn't work. Wait a minute, what? This summer you've been dreaming of starts with getting your COVID-19 vaccine. Just ask Susan. But so what's this? Wait, I hold on. Did they get, they dumped the ad, it looks like. Hang on a second. The ad's not playing. Oh no. I wonder if they got rid of this ad. Hang on a second. Is this real? Please tell me this is still here. Okay,
I'm waxed, and I'm back in action.
What? No! No! Oh my God, I'm so glad I never saw that ad before now. Oh my God. Anyway, PJ Media colleague Matt Margolis reported the vaccine hesitancy as a main culprit for Biden's failure. After previously reaching vaccination goals already reached under Trump, Joe Biden sets the ambitious target of 70% of U.S. adults being vaccinated by Independence Day. It appears we're unlikely to meet that goal to pace new vaccination. Well, anyway, they didn't get there, right? But even Joe's ignoring his own rules. The Washington Post reports the president will have 1,000 maskless people over to the People's House for a July 4th bash. 1,000? Is that your small group family thing? Are you kidding me? On Sunday, a sea of 1,000 largely maskless people will flow onto the south lawn of the White House for an Independence Day party that marks the first large-scale event hosted by Biden as president. It is a barbecue that will serve as a marker of sorts for America returning to normal. Well, we returned to normal a year ago for the most part, but not really anyway. But, oh my God. All right. And then the last one, this is some food for thought. And we'll finish with this, even though I'm way beyond my time here. Facebook is now identifying and re-educating you and your extremist conservative friends. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Black Hebrew Israelite.
That's right.
The black men now are not free in America. We're the black men who B.J. Harris kept over their sentence to use them as free labor to fight wildfires in California. Oh wait, that was done by a black woman.
That's right.
Yes, B.J. Harris. I'm not sure who B.J. Harris is. Oh, you mean Kamala? The woman who got horizontal to make her career go vertical, as what's his name, Jericho Green, as he says. I laugh every time he says it. Anyway, Facebook is now going to re-educate you. This is why I never go on Facebook. Facebook users started receiving notifications Thursday in a new campaign to, quote, provide resources and support to people on Facebook who may have engaged with or were exposed to extremist content or may know someone who is at risk, end quote. The big tech giant is sending out 2 notifications to certain users. One asks, quote, are you concerned that someone you know is becoming an extremist? The Facebook message then goes on to suggest that you can help by joining their support group. Hear stories and get help from people who have escaped violent extremist groups. Oh my God, here it is. Mike, this is Mike Foster. This popped up on his Facebook feed. Michael, you may have been exposed to harmful extremist content recently. Violent groups trying to manipulate your anger and disappointment. Yeah, leftist, every freaking day. You can take action now to protect yourselves and others. Get support from experts. Oh, experts at Facebook? Give me a break. Anyway, the other notification reads, quote, oh, you already read, I just read that. Oh, this is another one. You may have been exposed to harmful extremist content recently. The message continues. Violent groups try to manipulate your anger and disappointment. Oh, you mean like Antifa? Maybe? Or the middle faction of BLM? Not the protesting BLM, but the middle faction that likes to break shit and scare people. You can take action now to protect yourself and others. Finally, Facebook prompts users to, quote, get support from experts. The new initiative is being carried out via a partnership between Facebook and Life After Hate, an organization Facebook says provides support to anyone who wants to leave hate behind and solve problems in a non-violent ways. Oh, all these violent extremists out there. It's weird how the violent extremists aren't the people that they call violent extremists, though. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Absolutely, you know what I'm saying. Hello, Check Your Logic. And Infamous One. This, however, is not what After Hate says on their website, which reads, Life After Hate is committed to helping people leave the violent far right to connect with humanity and lead compassionate lives. The violent far right. Seems pretty few and far between. I'm sure there's some out there, you know, but holy shit, how about the violent far left that shows up everywhere? Did you say, oh, by the way, I don't have time today, but there was protests. You remember that We Therapy or We Spa, whatever place, where the woman was complaining about the person with the penis in with the women's locker room in front of her little girl, right? Well, there was a protest outside of the We Spa over the weekend, and a bunch of Antifa activists came and started beating the shit out of people. Who are Antifa the violent far right, or are they the violent far left? Put your answer in the chat, please. Antifa, violent far right or violent far left? Anyway, but these people, is committed to helping people leave the violent far right to connect with humanity and leave compassionate lives. The group asserts that today far right extremism and white supremacy are the greatest domestic terrorist threat facing the United States. Are y'all just being programmed right now? It's, oh my gosh, this concerted effort on things. It's embarrassing. If y'all are falling for this shit, you should be embarrassed. Good morning, atheist icon. Life After Hate, which partners with tech companies to identify and diffuse potentially violent extremists online, receives a $400,000 federal grant from the Obama administration. But it was rescinded under the Trump administration. Additionally, according to Life After Hate's website, race hustler and former football quarterback Colin Kaepernick donated $50,000 to the organization in 2017. Under the "you may have been exposed to harmful extremist content recently," Facebook prompts users to get support from experts, which leads to a section asking, quote, What arguments do violent groups use to gain followers? Examples of arguments from violent groups includes violence is the only way to achieve change. Sounds like Antifa. And minorities are destroying the country. Really? I've never heard that. Ever. Literally never. Under each example are bullet points where Facebook debunks each argument. Oh, isn't that special? I'll leave that. Oh, it's not doing it. Oh, this is on Facebook. I can't even do that. We'll show this anyway. When asked by the Federalist, the Facebook spokesman refused to answer how it defines extremism or what it defines as far right. Oh, anything right of the squad, maybe. Another big question is, if Facebook is trying to curb extremism, why are they partnering with a group that solely focuses on far-right violence? Good question! The Federalist asked Facebook whether they are also surveilling and combating left-wing extremism. They would not say. More explicitly, the Federalist asked whether or not Facebook would be censoring Antifa content and notifying those who've been exposed to it, given the leftist anarchist group has for years been so violent that former Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf said they meet the standards of a domestic terrorist group. Thank you, Chad Wolf. Facebook would not say. Black Lives Matter is another major violent left-wing organization that linked up to 95% of 2020 U.S. riots. Facebook would not say whether BLM falls under extremism, if Facebook is censoring BLM-related content, or if Facebook is notifying users who have been exposed to BLM-related content. A Facebook spokesman instead told the Federalist that the notifications were part of a test. Oh, we're just doing a test. Part of a test running in the U.S. that is a pilot for a wider global approach to radicalization prevention. Oh, these fuckers. And is connected to Facebook Redirect Initiative. Facebook website says their Redirect Initiative helps combat violent extremism and dangerous organizations by redirecting hate and violence-related search terms towards resources. Oh, so they're going to go, oh my God, Facebook is trying to figure out who you are by your search terms. This is why I don't use Facebook. The new extremism notifications are also connected to the Christchurch Call to Action, an organization that outlines collective voluntary commitments from governments and online service providers intended to address the issue of terrorists. So remember, we're talking about this partnership. I'm not going to read any more of this. The partnership between our government and social media outlets to try to root out extremism. This is it. Make no mistake where you are. This is it. This is hilarious. Delete your Facebook. Well, you don't have to. I use Facebook pretty much to put pictures of things. I rarely use it. In fact, I use Instagram for that now. But pretty much it was just for showing pictures of my kids and family and shit we do in the yard and stuff. And I'm done with Facebook. I can't. All right, gang. On that note, there's a couple of extra bonus articles that'll be in the tab today, but I just don't have time to get to them. Hey, before you do anything, if you haven't done it already, hit the like button, share the stream. And if you, thank you to people who have sponsored the show today. I greatly appreciate it. If you want to sponsor the show, you can do that. That information is down in the description down below. Also, leave a comment if you haven't done so. If you're watching on the replay, just let me know you're here. Comments in the comment section apparently are a big thing to the algorithm. So even if you're not, even if you just come back later and just put it there, figure out a comment to put in the comment section, even if it's just to say hello, thanks, here's my comment, I would appreciate it, because apparently they're emphasizing comments again, so interaction. So thanks for everyone who does that, especially our sponsors today, Expo Bahotep, Gunfox61, Black Hebrew Israelite, and is that all the sponsors today? And yes, that's everyone today. Thank you so much for sponsoring the show. I greatly appreciate it. It is time for me to go now. My name is PDawgKnight. Oh, hang on. Give me a second. It's coming. I feel it. Here it comes. Shh. I know it's coming.
That's right.
Thank you, Black Hebrew Israelite, who says, The like people. I'm not sure what that means, but hit something. Just anything. Interaction is king. Anyway, I gotta go. My name is PDawgKnight, and I'm out of here. Bye-bye. Hey, this is PDawgKnight, and thank you for watching today on the PDawgKnight channel. If you have an observation or remark you'd like to make about this video or my channel, I absolutely welcome you to write it in the comment section down below. I really look forward to hearing from you. And before you go, if you like what you saw but you're not already subscribed, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and definitely click that bell that pops up afterwards so you'll be notified when I post new videos or when we go live. I broadcast my live show, The Morning Night Live, Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. A special thank you to all the supporters of this channel who share our videos on social media and who make donations through Streamlabs, YouTube, Venmo, and Cashapp, which are all linked in the description down below. Thanks again, and until next time, I'm PDawgKnight, and I'm out of here.